Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Caden Kubler and welcome to Caden's Corner. The NBA playoffs start tomorrow and boy do we have some great matchups. I cannot wait for some playoff basketball. This long 82 game season has finally come to an end and we know who's going to battle it out for the Larry O'Brien trophy. So that means it's time for my annual breakdown and predictions for this year's NBA playoffs, and we'll start in the Western Conference for maybe the most exciting playoff series, the rematch from the Western Conference Finals of last year, the Lakers versus the reigning, defending NBA champions, the Denver Nuggets. Denver has been absolutely phenomenal all season long, and the Western Conference has just been a bloodbath in general. Denver, Minnesota, and Oklahoma City have all been trading back and forth for that number one seed, but ultimately Denver landed at number two, and they landed an 0-2 familiar foe with the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, they've had this Los Angeles team's number over the past few years, dating back to their sweep in the Western Conference Finals and 9 straight wins against this Los Angeles team. Denver is already the heavy favorite to win this series, and it's deservedly so. They have arguably the best duo in the NBA in Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. The Joker is on pace to win his third ever MVP, along with his finals MVP and finals win from last year. He's quickly putting together a very nice Hall of Fame case. Now, although I get on the Lakers for how much the media talks about them, I believe they're one of the best equipped teams to not only guard Jokic and Murray, but to stop the Denver Nuggets here. Now, we all know that Anthony Davis is a very good defender. I believe he's the best equipped in the entire NBA to guard him in a playoff series, but you can only hope to slow this guy down. You can't stop him. Now, you're going to have the media try to give a case for the Lakers for why they can win this series. I don't believe they will. Now, you can look back at last year, how every single game was so close, how it only came down to 26 points combined for all 4 of the losses last year in the Western Conference Finals. I understand that all the games went down to the wire, but at the end of the day, Denver thrives in crunch time, and it starts with their 2 juggernauts. The Nuggets are absolutely lethal off of this 2-man game with the Joker and Jamal Murray. They set up this high screen and roll where Jamal Murray gets downhill. And when Jamal Murray distributes it to Jokic, we all know how willing of a passer he is. He can find Aaron Gordon from that dunker spot. He can kick it out to MPJ or KCP. And of course, he's absolutely elite at making plays of his own. At the end of the day, we're not going to see another sweep of the Los Angeles Lakers, but I can guarantee you that the defending champs will not be going home in the first round, and I have Denver winning this series in 6 games. The next matchup here, we have the Timberwolves versus the Suns. I believe this is going to be another great series in this absolutely brutal Western Conference. For Minnesota, you have Karl Anthony Towns finally healthy. Of course, you have Anthony Edwards, who's emerging as one of the best young players in the NBA. And I believe this Minnesota team has battle scars from their series against Denver last year, and they're here to make some noise in the postseason. As I mentioned, Oklahoma City, Denver, and Minnesota were all vying for that number 1 seed, and ultimately, Minnesota drew the worst matchup possible for them, getting Phoenix in this first round. Phoenix has absolutely dominated Minnesota all year long. Minnesota has one of the best defenses in the NBA, anchored by Rudy Gobert, who's going to win his 4th Defensive Player of the Year award. They now have Karl Anthony Towns back and healthy for their second big man at the Twin Towers. But this defense matches up horribly against the Phoenix Suns. They went 0-3 against them on the regular season. Bradley Beal has torn apart Mike Conley in every matchup that they have had, and Anthony Edwards simply cannot defend Kevin Durant. Now, when you look at this Phoenix Suns squad, they had the most difficult 10-game stretch to end a season in NBA history, and they went 7-3. They played their best basketball, they dug their heels in on the defensive end, and this Phoenix team is very dangerous right now. I think it starts with them finally being healthy. You saw Kevin Durant, you saw Bradley Beal, and you saw Devin Booker all miss time throughout the regular season. You've also seen Nurkic in and out of the lineup. But at the end of the day, this recent success starts with Bradley Beal. Throughout the entire regular season, we saw him not want to step on Kevin Durant and Devin Booker's toes for taking up some of their shots. He was a more than willing passer for this team, but Frank Vogel wanted him to take that next step and be that elite scorer that they're paying $50 million a year, and we've seen him seriously turn it up. The final 3 games of the regular season, he averaged 27 points a game, and he's the true X factor for the Suns if they're going to make a deep postseason run. I think with how bad of a matchup this is for Minnesota, I have Phoenix winning this series in 6 games. I think Anthony Edwards and Mike Conley on the defensive end won't be enough to stop Bradley Beal and to stop Kevin Durant, not to mention how great Devin Booker is. So give me the Suns in 6 on this one. Then we'll move over to the Clippers and Mavericks in this 4-5 matchup. This has got to be one of my favorite series in the entire postseason. This is now the third time in 5 years that the Clippers and Mavs will play each other in the postseason. I think the tale for both of these squads is the peaks and valleys that they've had throughout the regular season. Starting with the Clippers, they made that trade to get James Harden to add to this big three, big four with Russell Westbrook, Kawhi, and Paul George. And they really struggled when Harden got to town. I believe they started 0-6 when his tenure started in a Los Angeles uniform, but they quickly turned it around, having a stretch where they went 30-4 throughout the regular season. And then they had some injuries throughout the regular season where we saw Russell Westbrook have that hand injury that left him sidelined for a few games, and then Kawhi Leonard's been dealing with this knee inflammation, and he's still up in the air for game one of this series. And then you look at the Dallas Mavericks. I mean, wow, did they turn it around. You look at their deadline moves that they made. They got PJ Washington and they got Daniel Gafford, and their season has completely turned around. They went from a dynamic team with Luka and Kyrie Irving that was bound for the play-in game for most of the regular season, and then these trade deadline moves quickly turned them up and made them the 5th seed in the Western Conference. You look at this final 17-game stretch for the Mavericks here before they rested their starters in the final 2 games. They had a 17-game stretch where they went 15-2. They looked completely different, and now they are the favorite to win this series as the number 5 seed. When I look at the Mavericks, I understand that they've been one of the hottest teams in basketball. You see so many people hopping on this Luka and Kyrie bandwagon. This is the 3rd time that these teams have played each other in 5 years. And then you have the question marks with Kawhi Leonard, who it looks like he's going to be banged up again for the postseason. But at the end of the day, give me the Los Angeles Clippers to win this series in a nail-biter. I expect Kawhi Leonard to play in this series, and I think this Clippers team doesn't get enough credit. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are 2 of the most disrespected superstars in the NBA, and it's partially because of their injury problems in the past, but if these guys are both healthy, the Clippers are a very dangerous team in the playoffs. I think this Clippers team is very deep. They have great defensive switchability with guys like Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. So give me the Clippers to win this series in 7 games. Then we'll hop over to the 1-8 matchup. I'm filming this on Thursday. I'll have this posted by Friday afternoon. My prediction for this play-in game between the Kings and Pelicans, I'm taking the Pelicans to win that 8 seed and play the Thunder in the first round. I won't spend too much time on this matchup. I think the Thunder are going to win this series with ease. I have them winning this in 5 games. With the loss of Zion Williamson, I don't think CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram are enough to overcome this Thunder team that has been spectacular this year. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, talk about the leap that he made this season. He is without a doubt an MVP contender in this league. And then Jalen Williams, J-Dub, his partner in crime, has been absolutely phenomenal this season and has also taken a massive jump for this young Thunder team. It is so impressive that this Thunder team grabbed the number 1 overall seed in this absolutely brutal Western Conference. They are the youngest team to ever grab a number 1 seed in NBA history. I don't need to dive further into this. The Thunder will win this series in 5 games and have no problem moving on without Zion Williamson. Then we'll hop over to the Eastern Conference. We'll also stay in this 1-8 matchup. Like I said, I'm recording this on Thursday night. This will be posted by Friday afternoon, so we have not seen the outcome of the Chicago-Miami game, but I'm assuming that without Jimmy Butler, Miami will still be able to get it done here. I think with Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero and Miami at home, they will have enough to beat the Chicago team, and they will face the Boston Celtics for the 3rd time in 3 years. I was really hoping that Jimmy Butler would play in this series. I think that would have made for another great series. We saw this improbable run that the Miami Heat made last year, beating the Bucks as the 8th seed, then beating New York, then beating Boston, and making it all the way to the finals. But without playoff Jimmy, Miami has no chance, and this Boston buzzsaw team will move in 4 games. Then we'll move to probably the most anticipated series here for the first round in the Eastern Conference. We have New York, who grabbed that number 2 seed against Philadelphia, who now has a healthy Joel Embiid as that number 7 seed. I think this is an absolutely terrible draw here for New York. They were really in that 3-4 bid the entire year. Then Milwaukee had that slump late, and New York ultimately grabbed that number 2 seed. And for working so hard in the regular season, their reward is playing the former MVP Joel Embiid in this Philadelphia squad. But don't get me wrong here, New York is more than capable of winning this series, and it's off the back of their MVP candidate, it, Jalen Brunson. I truly don't think that this guy has gotten enough credit for what he has done for New York this season and how good he has played. The Knicks haven't had their second best player in Julius Randle virtually all season long, and Jalen Brunson has been balling. You look at his final 7 games here that I have pulled up. He put up 38 points per game in this final 7-game stretch. Jalen Brunson has been on fire. You also look at the trade deadline move that New York made that's made them so dynamic on the defensive end. They grabbed OG Anunoby from the Knicks, shipped off RJ Barrett and Emmanuel quickly. People were concerned with the move at first, but OG has made this team spectacular. The Knicks aren't going to have Julius Randle the rest of the regular season. I think that really is going to stunt them from making an Eastern Conference Finals run. Joel Embiid, he's back and healthy. New York not having Julius Randle and that extra size is really going to affect them. Embiid has never reached the conference finals, and I believe this is the best shot that he's had in his entire career. This Philadelphia team, they have weapons. They have Tyrese Maxey, a guy that can now play off Joel Embiid with him back in the rotation. I really love the spark that Kelly Oubre's brought to the team this season. Tobias Harris has always been a guy that'll give around 15 points a game. And Philly is always a dynamic atmosphere in the postseason. Embiid is ultimately a matchup nightmare for any team for how good he is at 7 feet tall, but he's going to dominate New York in this series. This season against New York, he's averaging 37 points per game, and I don't expect it to slow down here. With how great of a season that Jalen Brunson is having, it's a darn shame that Julius Randle got hurt, but at the end of the day, I'm taking Embiid and Philadelphia to win this series in 7 games. In probably my favorite first round series of the entire playoffs, we have the 3-6 matchup as the Milwaukee Bucks, who've been on a major slump, against Indiana, one of the best offenses in the NBA. I think this series has 6 to 7 games written all over it, and I know I just talked about how New York ultimately grabbed that 2 seed and Milwaukee fell out of it, avoiding Philadelphia, but I think that this is not some favorable draw here for Milwaukee. They're too familiar with this Indiana team that they've seen 5 times this year and only have 1 win against. Milwaukee's been bad on the defensive end. They can't stop a nosebleed to save their life. The lowest amount of points that they held the Indiana Pacers to in the 5 matchups that they played was 122 points, and Indiana dropped 140 on them twice. You look at this Milwaukee team at the beginning of the season under Adrian Griffin, they were playing their best basketball. Now with Doc Rivers, they are playing their worst basketball and have been trending downwards heading into the postseason. Milwaukee ended their season going 2-6, and I simply have no faith in this team. With Tyrese Halliburton fully healthy, Indiana has no problem putting up 140 points a game and allowing Damian Giannis to score 30. This is going to be an absolute offensive barrage from both sides, and this series is going to be a lot of fun. I told you a few months ago that with how wide open the East was, that Indiana was one of the most underrated teams in the Eastern Conference, and to not be surprised if they made a conference finals run. I'm sticking with that. Give me Indiana to win this series in 6 games and send home Giannis and Dame in the first round. Now we'll head to this 4-5 series between the Cavaliers and the Magic. I think this is one of the least exciting playoff matchups here. I'll start this out by giving Paolo Banchero some flowers here. As a sophomore, he led this Magic team to the number 5 seed in the Eastern Conference. That is really dang impressive, and this kid has a very bright future ahead of him. But just because this series doesn't have 15 superstars in it doesn't mean that it's not a very high pressure series for Cleveland here. Their head coach JB Bickerstaff almost got fired at the beginning of the season for underperforming offensively with this backcourt of Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. Last year they came up short in the postseason as the number 4 seed. They lost in 5 games to New York, and Donovan Mitchell didn't have a good series. For a guy that put up around 30 points per game in the regular season last year, he came up short, only putting up 23 a game in the New York series last year. Cleveland has a lot of pressure surrounding them heading into this series, and ultimately I believe they'll pull it out due to this backcourt of Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. I think the Spider has a lot to prove, and with how good this Magic defense has been, they're going to have their hands full with these 2 guys. I look for this to be a defensive battle on both ends, but I have Cleveland winning this series in 6 games. Now we'll run through a quick recap here. I have the Nuggets beating the Lakers in 6 games. I have the Suns beating the Timberwolves in 6 games, and I have the Clippers beating the Mavericks in 7 games. And to wrap up the Western Conference, I have the Thunder beating the Pelicans, who will win tonight in 5 games. And then in the Eastern Conference, I have the Celtics over the Heat in 4 games. I have the Sixers over the Knicks in 7 games. That's going to be a fun one. And then I have the Pacers over the Bucks in 6 games. Wrapping it up with the 4-5 matchup, I have the Cleveland Cavaliers beating the Orlando Magic in 6 games. To the second round we go. This is where the fun continues. In this 1-4 matchup in the Western Conference, I have the Oklahoma City Thunder matching up against the Los Angeles Clippers. This is going to be an absolute great series in the second round. As I mentioned earlier, the Thunder are the youngest team to ever get the #1 seed in NBA history. They are so ahead of schedule with their entire team. SGA making this MVP leap. J-Dub making this most improved player leap. Chet Holmgren making this rookie of the year leap. I mean, it's been unbelievable what this young talent in Oklahoma City has been doing this year. But this is going to be an unpopular take with how much of a fan favorite this Thunder team is. I have the Clippers knocking them out here in 7 games, and it's due to one man, Kawhi Leonard. Last year in the playoffs, he averaged 37 points per game. I truly believe that he is the most disrespected and underrated superstar in our game. Not to mention how great of a defender he is. The Clippers have so much talent at the wing position. They have elite switchability with guys like Terrence Mann, Paul George, and Kawhi Leonard, who are going to need to jump in and guard Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, J-Dub. I think the playoff experience here is ultimately what's going to kick in and make all the difference in the world. Give me the Clippers, the most disrespected and underrated team in the league, the redheaded stepchild in Los Angeles. Give me them to the conference finals in 7 games over the Thunder. And then in the other series in the West, you have the reigning, defending NBA champions, the Denver Nuggets as the 2 seed. And then on the other side, you have the Phoenix Suns with the big 3, Book, KD, Beal. This is going to be a fantastic series. I really went back and forth on this series, and I'll read through some of my points for you guys before I give you ultimately my prediction. The Suns are 2-1 against the Nuggets this year, and 2 of those wins were on the road in crucial games for the Suns. We all know how hard it is to go to that altitude and pull off big-time wins, and the Suns did it twice. Now, they went 2-1 against their season series with the Nuggets, but I'm looking at those 2 road games as big indicators in this potential series. You also have the battle of complete opposite teams in the fourth quarter. The Phoenix Suns have been one of the worst fourth quarter teams in the NBA, and the Denver Nuggets in crunch time are one of the best with their 2-man game. Phoenix right now is playing their best basketball heading into the postseason. On the defensive end, they're digging down and they are guarding 1 through 5. Then the big 3, they've been playing phenomenally as well. Bradley Beal has finally emerged and has finally taken that role as that third scorer for this team, and they're dangerous when all 3 of these guys are firing at the same time. When I look at the adversity that this Suns team faced to grab the 6th seed, avoid the play-in, in the toughest 10-game stretch to close a regular season in NBA history, I have to give them big time kudos here, and that's ultimately why I believe they'll win this series. Last year in the postseason, you want to know which team was the only team that got 2 games off the Denver Nuggets in the entire playoffs? It was the Phoenix Suns. They won 2 games. They had the series at 2-2 at one point. You want to hear the difference of the closing lineups in those final 2 games last year versus the roster that they'll have going into this year, assuming that everyone's healthy? Last year, Kevin Durant, Landry Shamet, Jock Landale, Cameron Payne, and Devin Booker. You look at the difference this year, they are going to have Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Grayson Allen, and Yusuf Nurkic. Grayson Allen is leading the league in 3-point percentage, and Yusuf Nurkic has really been this bruiser that the Suns have needed so bad. I have the Suns winning this series in 6 games, beating the defending champs and moving on to the Western Conference Finals. Now we'll head to the second round of the Eastern Conference here, where we have the Celtics against the Cavaliers in the 1-4 matchup. I also don't think that Boston will remotely struggle at all in this series. They've been such a buzzsaw all season long with how good they are 1 through 5. Boston went 2-1 against them on the regular season, and the Cavaliers' only win was a 30-point second half comeback. I don't think the Cavaliers have enough offensively to overcome this punch that the Celtics bring. The Cavaliers generate almost all of their offense through Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell in the backcourt. The Celtics have the best backcourt defense in the entire league, led by Drew Holiday and Derek White. Not to mention, Boston can also match the pace that Cleveland's going to want to play at. Cleveland can play slow with their big guys, Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, but this should ultimately be another easy sweep for Boston here, representing the first team in the Eastern Conference Finals. Then in the second matchup, you have both upset picks, the Pacers as the number 6 seed and Philadelphia as the number 7 seed. I think this will also be another great series. Even though both of these teams have such a low seed, I believe they are truly up there as two of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. Indiana went 2-0 against the Sixers when Embiid was fully healthy in the lineup, and then their other loss against them, Embiid wasn't playing. Joel Embiid has his best shot to ever reach the conference finals, and I don't think Indiana's going to get in his way of making it. Indiana has one of the best offenses in the NBA that I think will keep them in the series, but their defense is absolutely abysmal, and with how good Joel Embiid is, he's going to feast this series. I got Philly in 6 here for Joel Embiid's first ever trip to the conference finals. We'll stay in the East here for the Eastern Conference Finals. We have the Celtics, we have Philadelphia for a rematch of last year when Boston bounced them in 7 games. Boston has absolutely owned Philadelphia over the past few years. Even Joel Embiid has said this isn't a rivalry. They always kick our butt. You even have Paul Reed on the 76ers, who's happy they're avoiding Boston in the first round because they know New York is an easier opponent. Philadelphia has always struggled against Boston, and I don't see it stopping here. Boston was able to beat Philadelphia in 7 games last year, and they've done nothing but get way better. Give me Boston in 5 games over Philadelphia to have an absolute cakewalk into the finals. In the Western Conference, I bet you didn't have the Phoenix Suns versus the Los Angeles Clippers on your bingo card, but guess what? I did. The Clippers have done extremely well against the Phoenix Suns all season long. They're 3-1 against them, and they've played them really tough in all of their games. Assuming that everyone is healthy, this is going to be an absolutely amazing series with all the talent that both of these teams have at the wing and guard position. I think the Clippers are the more deep team here, and I also think they're the better defensive team here. But with how good the Suns have been playing and with this continued momentum after beating Denver, Phoenix is going to have all the confidence in the world thinking that they can win a title. With these championship aspirations and the big three firing on all cylinders, this is going to be a very hard team to beat, and they're not losing here. Kawhi Leonard's going to have the Kevin Durant matchup, and Paul George is most likely going to have the Devin Booker matchup. That's going to leave Bradley Beal on either Russell Westbrook or James Harden, and he's going to be the deciding factor of who wins this series. I believe he's going to get the better of the Clippers. Give me the Suns in 6 games. In the finals, we have the Boston Celtics against the Phoenix Suns. The Celtics have virtually cakewalked their way through the Eastern Conference. Phoenix will have played 3 grueling series against the Timberwolves, against the Nuggets, then against the Clippers, 3 teams that all had championship aspirations. But this is the year that Boston finally gets it done. They finally get over the hump and get that monkey off their back. When you look at this matchup, Tatum has always played Kevin Durant really well, especially in the past few seasons, and I don't see that stopping here. Phoenix also hasn't seen Porzingis yet, and they're 0-2 against the Celtics this season. We all know how great Porzingis has been for this Celtics team, the switchability that he brings. Boston is just so balanced. They've been unbelievable all season long. Just to read you guys off a few numbers here, they're the best in net rating. They're the second best in defensive rating. They're the third best in defensive efficiency. They have the best offensive rating in the league and the first best offensive efficiency as well. They've had an absolutely fantastic regular season. We saw them win 64 ball games, claiming that number 1 overall seed in the playoffs. You look at this starting lineup 1 through 5, every single guy can easily drop 30 points, and the scarier part about it is they have this core locked up for the next few years. They are such a nightmare against opposing coaches, and I don't even know where you start to defend this team. First of all, you have the superstars, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown, the $300 million man. Jason Tatum, the soon-to-be $300 million man. Both of these guys are absolutely phenomenal ISO players, not to mention they've become willing passers over their careers. Then you have Kristaps Porzingis, who's been absolutely phenomenal for this team and took no time at all adapting to this Boston environment. He's been a monster off of switches when he comes up to do the high screen and roll. You want to switch that smaller defender on him in that high screen and roll? Good luck. He will make you pay with his deadly mid-range jumper. And then looking at their guards, they have one of the best defensive backcourts in the NBA who can also get it done on the offensive end. We'll start with Derek White. He can give you a 30-piece on any given night, not to mention he's leading the NBA in blocks at the guard position. And then Drew Holiday, he'll probably be on the all-defensive NBA team again, and not to mention he's shooting the best corner three-point percentage in the NBA. Boston is an absolute buzzsaw, and it's no wonder why they had 64 wins and the number 1 overall record in the NBA. This is the year that they get it done. Jason Tatum will have his revenge from the finals 2 years ago, winning finals MVP, and a dynasty is born in Boston. I'm Caden Kubler, and that's my take.